Hello?
We've already seen the picture of a bunch of nodes refusing to connect to so-and-so, right?
There's no, I mean, the picture is a joke.
But it was a picture from the actual network, right? So it was a graphical representation of the actual
it's
state
because
of the
someone
network.
made a joke on you by creating a Lightning Network node called Roger Ver and decided
So
to
they
not
successfully
connect.
censored somebody from participating?
No, he censored himself.
What if that node was me? How do you know it wasn't me?
Okay, if it was you and people decide to censor you because of your name, then
I think I'll use on-chain transactions on Bitcoin Cash is what I would do if that were the case.
Or you should not be. You should be an anonymous Lightning Network, because that's what Bitcoin is all about, right?
I think fungibility is incredibly important. So
we can agree on that.
So anyhow, we have Bitcoin BTC here in 2018, no longer low fee. Do we agree it's no longer low fee? This is a list of things that made Bitcoin popular.
2017, I would agree.
2018
is no longer low fee. 2018, the fees are back to pretty soon.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Hi, Stefan.
Hi, Irina. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can all probably switch on your video, so we will see you. Or Amir, he's joined us. He asked us to wait several minutes, and he will join our webinar. Okay, I will switch on. Hi.
I'm sorry, I'm afraid I cannot activate my video. I have a software issue with my camera. I cannot activate my camera, unfortunately.
Never mind. Okay, so we're just waiting for Amir. So
all right.
He should join us in several minutes. But I think we can start. So we are very pleased to see so many participants at our webinar. So here we're going to talk about China blockchain. It's an interesting topic because we have lots of requests regarding blockchain frameworks and if they are compatible with some European blockchain startups. Thus, we decided to dive deeper into this ecosystem from tech perspective, from business perspective. Hope, it will be very productive and interesting for the audience. And Alex, he's joined us here as well. So he's lead blockchain engineer at Fire Labs company and has very good background, especially in NeoVM blockchain. So from tech perspective, he has also practice background. So here's Alex. Say hello.
Hello, Alex.
Also, I decided to invite Stefan and Amir because they have been working more than 10 years in China. So they know very well this ecosystem. Some probably particular probably expectations and probably conditions how to work at at this market, how to attract your first users. Is it probably hard to launch a blockchain startup in China? So I hope that Amir will tell you more about it, because I've got lots of interesting facts from Amir regarding getting like clients in China. Okay, so probably we can start. Amir, are you with us? Okay, so he should join us just in several minutes. So I guess, like, Alex, probably you can start.
I think I should probably be at the end because it's the most complicated out of.
Yeah, I know, but Timur has some tech issues, so he's joining us, but he can join in just in several minutes, so you can start. If you want, you can do it from my computer.
Yeah, okay, so here.
Yeah, you can share the screen. Open it. Okay, Alex, you just can present a little bit yourself. No, 1 second.
Just a moment.
Yeah, in full screen. Just tell a little bit about your background, because Alex, he has really interesting experience as well in development other blockchains, permission blockchains. He was also in core team of Quorum, so he has a very great background, in other permission blockchains. So just several,
Yeah, so in general, I've started working with blockchain as a very practical thing. Initially started not from public blockchains, which is usually more popular, but more from a private perspective, initially looking at a solution to have a blockchain as a backend for some escrow service. And later worked with very different of them, like initially with Quorum, and as Helen mentioned, worked a bit on internals of it. Also tried different solutions by Hyperledger, Hyperledger Fabric, Iroha, and other ones, and Hyperledger Sawtooth, and probably most popular ones on the public side, like Ethereum, like Neo, and so on. And today we are talking about China, and I'll discuss Neo, and the most important, like an overview of what Neo is. Then we'll talk a bit about use cases for Neo, and a bit about the technological side of it. So let's start. So the first one is, here's just a few facts about Neo. So the first one is made in China. As usually you see on everything manufactured, but here it started as an shares project back in China. That's one important thing, and not common. Another not common thing is that it's built for business, or let's say for corporations. Because usually when we speak about blockchain, especially about the public blockchain solutions, it is made for consumers initially. Like, idea is that it's you and me and anybody else are usual consumers. And we can do some transactions between each other and so on. In Neo, it's a bit different. Just, I'm not sure if it was from the start when it started as N-shares or later when it became Neo, but the idea is that it was built specifically for corporations just from the start. So the idea was that it's built for business, like, for example, business pays for transactions, not customers. Business hosts nodes, not just usual customers. And many things like that. We'll talk about this in details later. Another important thing is its high speed, and probably it is the thing that it is most well known for, is the speed, because there are different information about this. Like, some articles internet tell that it is 10,000 transactions per second, which is not true right now. Some tell 1,000, some tell it's something like 300. So in general, yeah, or no, it's quite fast. It's about 100. Oh, sorry, it's about 1,000 transactions per second, which is in comparison with Bitcoin or Ethereum, it is ultra fast because they have something like 15, 28, 30 transactions per second. So another thing, it's Neo is centralized. What does it mean? Like when we talk about Ethereum, it means like there is nobody who owns it. Like everybody owns it. If let's say all of Ethereum core team will decided to quit and start something new, okay, Ethereum will continue. Other people could develop it. It's open source. It's anybody could host Ethereum nodes, and all Ethereum nodes are equal. In Neo, it is not like that. In Neo, you have you have nodes that are usually hosted by business, and you have a special kind of a bookkeeping node, which is actually validator. And right now, as I remember, there are only 7 validators or so, and it is not anonymous. It's like to be those validator or bookkeeper, you need to be citizen of China. You need to have you should not be anonymous and so on. So that is why it's very centralized. There is a commercial company standing besides Neo, and also it is, let's say, done in agreement with Chinese government. The next thing here I mentioned that it is Ethereum competitor, and by Ethereum competitor I mean like in terms of features, in terms of possibilities, what could you do with Neo, it is very, very close to Ethereum. Like, because let's say if we'll talk about crypto space like 3, 4, 5 years ago, where there was a Bitcoin and a lot of Bitcoin forks, which was totally fine if you just want to have some business transactions between different parties, but you were not able to do some custom business logic on top of it. By this I mean stuff like ICOs, like CryptoKitties, like I don't know, some kind of voting. It was not possible. Like for each new, let's say, for each new application, there was an idea that okay, you create another blockchain from the ground up or a fork of Bitcoin. So in this case, Neo is like Ethereum because it could be used for very different cases. Oh, and as I mentioned previously, it's regulated by Chinese authorities. Now, here, as I mentioned, here is a pie chart where you can see the red is Ethereum transactions per second, blue is Bitcoin, and here is Neo. So you can see just how much faster it is right now, like how much more throughput it has. So here are a few more important details. So about Neo, and when we're talking about its overview. So the first one, it has 2 different currencies, Neo and Gas. What's the difference between them? Because usually you have one. Like idea is that okay, there is main currency called Neo, and it's tradable on exchanges. You can have it, and when you have some Neo, you own, let's say, based on transactions that happening in the network, you earn some gas, and gas is another currency that is used for transactions. And it is important. As I know, you can still buy gas from exchanges, but usually, like the right way is that you have Neo and you earn gas, and you use that gas for transactions. This one important thing, which is not, let's say, and not common among cryptocurrencies. Another one is corporations pay for transactions. The idea is that okay, nodes, let's say, nodes pay for transactions, while as the usual consumer, you may have a wallet, you may send transactions from one wallet to another, and you will not be the one who pays for the transaction. Another thing is that right now there are 7 bookkeeping nodes, as I mentioned previously, and I saw some plans for Neo. They plan to have more bookkeeping nodes. Probably they want to have about 1,000 of them split around the world. The idea that okay, for for having everything working fast. They want to have it in different regions, but right now there are very small amount of this bookkeeping nodes. However, because it is not a high amount, it is easy to synchronize data between them, and it is quite fast. Then another important thing is that right now there are multiple languages for smart contracts, and we'll talk about this in details later, but the idea is that when we're talking about Ethereum or its forks, usually you use Solidity programming language built specifically for Ethereum. And there are some other alternatives. There is Serpent, there is some new programming language, I don't remember the name right now, but the idea that you use special programming languages built for Ethereum. In Neo, it is very different. Here, the idea is that you use common programming languages, then you compile smart contracts data into bytecode, and that bytecode runs on Ethereum, on Neo virtual machine, and it has lots of as a consequence, you have lots of different possibilities what you can do with the language, just because you can use a lot of different libraries and tools built for the respective programming languages instead of building everything on your own or using few libraries used by Ethereum, for example. The next thing is that there is an NeoVM standard for contract assets. The idea is that if you work with Ethereum, there is ERC20 standard for smart contract, which is a token standard to be used for virtually any ICO nowadays, or let's say almost any ICO nowadays, which could be publicly traded on exchanges, which could be transferred between some of wallets, like almost out of the box. And the idea is that for Neo, there is very similar thing called NeoVM. It's a similar smart contract format for those tokens for asset contracts. And again, some wallets already allows you work with it. Also, it is a bit more complicated, but also another thing that is popular in Ethereum is non-fungible tokens. Like best example of this is Cryptokitties, and which could be traded. And the idea is that, okay, if ERC20 token is fungible, the idea is that one token equals any other token. Here, for non-fungible tokens, each token is unique. And right now in Neo, there are few standards for it. They are quite kind of competitors. But again, the idea is that it's also quite standardized right now. Oh, now we're talking about use cases. And the use cases for Neo, which could be either a good or bad thing, but usually they are the same as Ethereum. Like the first example is crowdfunding. Again, nothing stops you if you want to have some kind of crowd sale based on or crowdfunding based on Ethereum, no problem. You just create your own NeoVM token. You create separate crowd sale contracts, and virtually it all would be absolutely the same as with Ethereum. The only difference is that which wallets would be able to work with this and which exchanges this asset could be traded on. But in general, it's the same. And the second case, it's again same as for Ethereum. Okay, you can create kind of CryptoKitties or any other asset. Like, for example, if, let's say, you want to sell some real estate and you want to tokenize it, you want to have non-fungible tokens for it. I mean, like, for example, 50 square meters of some penthouse on the upper floor, it's not equal 50 square meters on the ground floor of apartment building. So for the 50 square meters, you will release a kind of special non-fungible token, and again, it would be the same with Neo as with Ethereum. The third thing also, I haven't seen example of this, but it's definitely possible, is DAO, or distributed autonomous organizations. Right now, you can run it on Ethereum. However, like if you want to control organization, control its financial flows, do some internal voting for something to make decisions, and you want everything of this to be, let's say, open and accessible to all organization members, you can do it on Ethereum. There are projects like Aragon available. And for Neo, there is nothing stops you for doing the same. And sometimes it's even easier with Neo because it is faster and cheaper. Like usually transactions itself, let's say you won't need to wait fewer minutes, you will need to wait a few seconds, for example, or transactions would be cheaper. But another important thing that for Ethereum, there are a lot of code bases for this, a lot of different contracts for DAO, a lot of different tools. For Neo, this one, as told previously, I haven't heard about projects doing this, but again, it's definitely possible with Neo, and it's quite convenient. Now, here, as I've mentioned already, idea is virtually anything you can do with Ethereum smart contracts, you can do the same with Neo. Probably the only exceptions are something that related to mining on Ethereum, because sometimes you can create smart contracts that is dependent on your mining resources or on mining of Ethereum. Of course, in Neo it is different, because Neo it is kind of a proof of stake, I think. Okay, now let's talk about some cases that are possible with Neo, but not possible with Ethereum. And here's the first one, and probably I like it the most. It's, for example, replacement for Swift payment network. The idea, and that is, I think, a good example, because it's especially the thing that used for business. It means like usual consumers may benefit from it as well, but for business, it's much more important. Like, for example, 3 years ago or so, we needed to send our payroll for my startup to a company to spread within employees, and it was a problem because some clerk in some Société Générale bank mixed out papers and sent money for something like 10 people for different accounts. And it taken 2 weeks just to find out what's wrong. And besides that, Swift transactions are quite expensive. So this is a problem with Swift. Like, it's prone to human errors, it's expensive, it is slow, and there is no problem in implementing similar thing to Swift for cross-border payments using Neo network. Like, theoretically, you could do the same with Ethereum, for example, but it is a problem because of its performance. Like, when you have something like 25 transactions per second, it means like, okay, if you build a network for sending money between bank to bank or different organization to organization, there are very high chances that you'll hit that 25 transactions per second limit, and that would be a problem that will make transactions slow. With Neo, with its 1,000 transactions per second, it's totally possible.
Alex, just want to interrupt you because we had one related question regarding the Neo blockchain. Mm-hmm. Like, we were asked regarding the best blockchain implementation for online voting system. Let's say Neo or NEM blockchain or Ethermint. Already, we mentioned it will be the best solution for such voting system. What do you think from tech perspective, like solution architect?
Let me speak about this a bit later, because next use cases I wanted to present. Yes, is actually. And
that's why you mentioned this question. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's exactly the thing is real-time or near real-time voting. Mm-hmm. Because. So at first, let me tell about the Neo use case and then compare it to other solutions. So here's the idea. Again, on Ethereum, you can implement voting. nothing is wrong with it. It would be completely transparent, but it won't be fast. And with Neo, you can do the same. Like, again, in terms of functionality, it's very similar. But because of high network throughput, you can make this voting, and it would be very fast. Like, here's example on the picture I've posted. Like, when you send some short message to specific number, and you see polls.
Yeah, we can share
checking.
this out
You
of
can,
the screen, and they will see the screen. Yep, not a they will understand, because in any case we will send the slides after the webinar.
Yeah, so idea is that you can have virtually the same thing done with Neo with no problem. And now you mentioned the question, it's very different, like, because if we're talking about NEM, it is not something that, it's not a computational platform like Ethereum or Neo. It's just a cryptocurrency. So it's not for doing some custom things on top of it. It's just distributed ledger. So it's not for voting or something like that. If you're talking about Ethermint, Ethermint is a private fork of Ethereum used for, again, internally. It's not open. And here it is where idea, like, for those two, it's what do you want to achieve? If you want to have this voting to be open and available virtually to anybody in internet, in this case, of course, you should use Neo just because it is public thing. Like, in case you want to have it just within specific organization, for example, you can build it on Ethermint if you do not want anybody outside to see the results. So that is why both are good, but they're just for different use cases, whether it should be public or whether it should be private.
Thanks.
Yeah, let's continue. Another case, I thought about it yesterday. I'm still not sure about its legal status. It's like betting, and it is very similar to previous one about the voting. The idea, like, if you have some sports event coming right now in the progress, and you want to have some bets, and you want to be sure that it won't be somehow confused, it won't be, there would be no cheating, nothing would be able to undo later after the bet was made. In this case, you can build betting on Neo, and again, in this case, you won't be afraid of cryptocurrency doesn't have enough network throughput, because Neo can handle such things. So you can implement betting or any other sort of this public activities. Okay, let's continue. Now we'll talk a bit about technologies after those use cases. So the first thing I've touched a bit already is the implementation of Neo and its thing called NeoVM. Here's the idea is that, okay, you have source code of smart contracts. It could be done in different programming languages. That is, it is compiled to bytecode, and it is called thing called AB. I won't get into details, but it's very similar to Ethereum. But idea that Ethereum works only with its own programming languages, and Neo works with different programming languages. It just needs to have some software development kit specifically for that language. Oh, and here are a few insights. So the first one, the idea is Neo was built using C# programming language. It's a native one, and everything, when you read about Neo, usually most examples would be in C#. However, for example, I'm using Python with Neo, and it's also not a problem. They have kind of a fork, it's called NeoPython, and it's the second most popular choice for Neo. You just need to have this NeoPython or other SDK to work with Python. And also, right now, you can create your smart contracts in Java or Kotlin. It's another language compatible with Java, with JavaScript, with Go. I'm not sure about other languages support for them, but anyway, more would come. That's the first thing, and it is very, very important. Another important thing here is a tool chain for Neo. The idea is like when you work with Ethereum, in the last couple of years, there are a lot of tools emerge like Web3, like Truffle, like OpenZeppelin smart contracts, like, I don't know, Remix Ideal, like a lot of different stuff, because, you know, you need somehow to work with the Solidity programming language. And sometimes it's a bit tricky, like, for example, it's not common to have, if you have smart contracts, in this case, you need to create tests for those contracts, automated tests, to see that everything works properly. And for example, it is very common to have smart contracts built in Solidity and writing tests using some JavaScript, which is, in my opinion, it's not very convenient, but it is how it is done. Just a moment. Okay. Yeah, with Neo, it is very different, because there are not so much tools, but the ones that are present are very easy to use. Like, for example, if you don't need to create smart contracts in different, tests in different language. If you create contracts with C# or Python, of course, you can use testing tools available for C# and Python. Or, for example, when you're developing for Ethereum, you need, during the development, you need to create kind of private Ethereum network, or work with a test net to do your testing, or somehow in other ways find a way to easily deploy and debug your smart contracts and check transactions between different accounts. And it's quite tricky. Like half a year ago, I even released a set of tools for around Ethereum and Ethermint, just to simplify such stuff. With Neo, it's much easier. This kind of organization, City of Zion, it is, I'm not sure if it's commercial or not, but the idea is that it's organization, they have GitHub account, and they release a lot of different tools to work with Neo, like different blockchain explorers, different testing tools, and they also have a let's say they have private Neo network for development, which could be ramped up in just 5 to 10 minutes, and it is much easier to work with comparing to Ethereum.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh.
And just to interrupt you, that we don't have like more time. We should to give time for Amir and for Stefan.
Okay.
You can finish your presentation in just several questions from the audience, and then we can go.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm almost finishing. So, and again, I've mentioned that. Okay. And again, that is definitely just my opinion, but with my experience in Ethereum and Neo, to me, usually Neo feels like something that is more easier and faster to develop to Ethereum. Not much, but definitely easier, just because of the tools that they already provide and because of using more popular programming languages. That is, and we're already finishing.
Okay, Alex.
Actually.
It's just like end of
that's it. I decided,
we've got several questions also regarding the private blockchain. What is value of private blockchain, and would it be considered an implementation of blockchain if it's just used as distributed ledger? What's your
Okay, it's very different, but
it's more from business.
The idea is that it's very okay. Those are very different stuff. There are cases when you need, let's say, there are sometimes there are talks by different people that like you do not need private blockchain. All you need is public. The whole idea is to have it public. And it's definitely reasonable. However, there are some cases when you need to have blockchain for some businesses where you don't want to share information outside. Probably the best example is implementing supply chain on the blockchain. There's, for example, value of blockchain, like if you have lots of different suppliers and let's say you transport some goods from one company to another, you have a lot of intermediaries in between, you have some insurance companies, and you always need to track its status and be sure if something got broken or otherwise wrong, like you need to find where it went wrong and who is in charge for it. That those you don't want to have data be changed afterwards or something. Like you can utilize blockchain for this stuff, and it really brings value. And of course, you can build such things using Neo, for example, because it's fast. But why do you want to have all your shipment or otherwise supply chain data be available to anybody? You just want to share specific information with one company, specific information with other company, and have it not be available from the outside world. And here's where private blockchain is probably much better solution.
Also, I would like just to point out another question, interesting question regarding the proof of authority. So can it be available to implement blockchain with proof of authority as a consensus mechanism?
There are already solutions. Sorry, I really don't understand the question, because okay, there are already proof of authority, and Neo is like similar stuff. Like I don't understand the question, because there are already it's not a theory; it's already practical implementations
no, it's
available. Like
blockchain technologies, like just blockchain with proof of authority, like a consensus mechanism.
Yeah, but
what do you think about it?
It's already works. It's already totally fine. It's let's say anything that is not proof of work. It's fast. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And would you implement a blockchain from scratch or create a side chain of Ethereum to adapt it to a specific use case where smart contracts are needed?
Sorry, it's a bit more. It's very broad thing. Like it really depends on specifics of the project. Yeah, because there are a lot of cases when you even don't need to have a blockchain, or cases where let's say where you want to have something very non-standard, like let's say you want to have kind of a blockchain, but you want to work from mobile, and you want it to be not even a chain by like transactions between different parties, but not available to others. Like there is even a project called Holochain for such stuff right now. I've read about it a couple of days ago. So sorry, but I cannot answer like to have a single answer for this, because it's really depends a lot on specifics.
Yeah, we should dive deeper probably in business specs and understand the requirements, because sometimes even it makes sense to build from scratch. Sometimes it could be just forked. Okay, thanks, Alex. For explaining us from tech perspective regarding them, how it's not easy to work with for probably European blockchain startups, as we see. Yeah,
but anyway, what I haven't talked about, which probably Amir will talk about, is that Neo, unlike other solutions, it is controlled by a specific organization, and it's Chinese. Yeah, by bookkeepers, it's Chinese.
Yeah, like I was also wondering, because it has great tech possibilities, but it's not commonly used like Hyperledger, let's say Fabric or another. Let's say, sure. But why we just also to invite Amir, so he will probably tell more about some specific specific factors, how to run blockchain projects in China, and what challenges you can face with, and probably what you're going to do, if you're going to, so you're European-based, let's say, or US-based startup, and you want also to attract some users from Asian markets, and what challenges you will face with. I think Amir is with us, so probably he will present himself better than me. So he has also great experience in marketing stuff. He has also great experience in launching, so in promoting of ICOs. So he has also experience, I know, in like negotiations with venture companies based also in China. So probably, he will tell more about himself. I think he's with us. So Amir, can you hear us? Oh, seems he doesn't. Probably something with his microphone. Just 1 second.
I'm here. Everybody can hear me all right?
Amir, can you join us?
Yes, I'm in here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay, Amir, you can start. We will also share your presentation with our participants. But let's start with presentation. Hello, Amir, can you hear us?
Yes, just right. Connection is breaking up, but before I start, I want to make sure everybody can hear me all right. Can you please confirm it?
Yeah, I see.
All good? Everybody can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you well, Amir.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Good, good. Well, given the battery that I have on the computer, which is running out pretty fast, I'm going to improvise. Well, thank you so much for having me here. I've been to China for about 5 years, and China probably one of the first countries that could be applied in terms of blockchain, anything related to tech. Among the participants, if those who have been to China, they will understand what I'm talking about, the scale-wise, the digit-wise, the number-wise. When it comes to manufacturing anything, for the past 30 years, it was all about purely China. And there was an issue differentiating between quality product versus the fake product. And blockchain gives the solution to settle this puzzle. To give you a couple of really global scandals that happened in China for the past couple of years, I could talk about the Sanlu scandal. Sanlu is the manufacturer of milk production in China, the second biggest manufacturer. And they did admit that they made a number of fake products, which killed about 6 children, and 50,000 children went to the hospital within 3 days. So that's one of the milk-related products. Think about the situation close to the Shanghai where I live in Shanxi province, where a manufacturer was manufacturing about 50,000 condoms a week online, and using the names like Durex or Okamoto or Jizbon. And think about 5 million condoms that were sold on a monthly basis online. But think about the situation where you buy the wine, and every single hour, 30,000 bottles of wines are sold online within China itself. A majority of them are fake, and simple user may not understand the quality wine, fake wine. They just drink the wine for the sake of drinking wine for the cultural reasons. So this had a number of scandals that went to the world. But living in China, we do have the fear whatever we buy, online or offline, we are very skeptical. That's why majority of the people that have a budget, they buy foreign products. And that's what brings blockchain on the table. Can I continue? Just to make sure.
Yep, it's all right.
Hello?
Yeah,
all good? Okay. Good. Just to continue, even today, according to statistics, more than 60% of fake products still manufactured in China, which brings a lot of opportunities for blockchain startups. Yeah, for the past four years, starting 2014 to 2017, a lot of blockchain startups came to China to raise funds, and over 10 billion, Morgan Stanley says over 10 billion dollars were raised within China itself, or with Chinese investors based in Singapore, based in Japan, based in South Korea. After the government's ban, the idea behind when people over 500 websites with the servers outside of China were collecting Chinese money, and people were following the trends without analyzing, without understanding, without talking to the experts. After the complaint, government simply decided to knock down or crack down ratios and requested those startups that were collecting money to return to the funds and venture capital firms, crypto funds, and so forth. But they keep the technology, which is being still used. Those who are blockchain, I would like to encourage you to implement and try your projects in China for a number of reasons with the new regulations. The government has allocated about $5 billion just for the 2018 and 19 in 3 big cities. That's Shenzhen, that's Hangzhou, and that's between Beijing and Shanghai. What they're doing right now is they're inviting new tech startups or blockchain startups, new talents from wherever you are from, doesn't really matter. You come with your pitch. You pitched an idea to the fund managers, to the government representatives, and they give you the budget, which is not that hard to get. The downside of the situation is your technology or your IP, intellectual property, can be stolen. So that's something you have to consider to leverage with. So the idea behind it is you either share with your knowledge, get the quick buck, or you find someone whom you trust in the field, meaning within China itself, and move forwards, which can be slightly competitive and harder. And that what really annoys and bothers a lot of foreign startups to come to China and and start raising the funds. During my stay in China, I was able to get a number of seed funding, starting to $500,000 up to $12 million for the general project that I was working for, and having met more than probably 50 different crypto funds, more than 150 angel investors and crypto investors. I figured out there are a number of rules that one has to know before dealing or working or stepping into any form of partnership with Chinese folks. There are a number of things one has to be prepared for before doing any business. And these are the 7 rules that I would like to share with you, and I hope that will be helpful for the participants. The first rule, what we call, Stefan definitely could comment on that in the future, it's called Guanxi rule. The Guanxi meaning, before you start talking business to anybody in China, West Chinese or non-Chinese, you should develop certain relationship to build the rapport with people. And that sort of, that form of relationship, it's called Guanxi. Before you step into business on your Guanxi skills, which what we call in English sort of interpersonal communication skills. That's pretty much about emotional intelligence versus your IQ. So people would like to spend some time with you just to figure out if there's any sort of chemistry, and that was significant in China. That's the first rule. Do not step into business right away, but develop the Guanxi, interpersonal communication skills, which requires a lot of patience. Second rule, Chinese folks never, in major cases, never reveal their emotions. Starting from the kindergarten, in any academic institutions, Confucius is taught, and where people are taught not to show their emotions, and showing the emotion is the sign of the weakness. Therefore, when you are in China, if people do not respond emotionally to any sort of message that you deliver, it doesn't mean they agree or disagree. It doesn't mean they ignore you. They're just the way they are. So the first one, develop the Guanxi, the interpersonal communication skills. And the second one, do not pay that much attention when you don't get the response in return in the form of emotional response. They can respond with a smile, which is very totally normal. That was kind of hard to accept for me. But the more I dealt with the Chinese folks, emotions are not a part of their lives. Third one, saving the face. Never ever criticize a Chinese national in front of his or her peers. When you criticize somebody publicly, that means you are destroying their complete identity. China, for me, is purely about collective mindset versus the individual. For example, in the West, we do have our concept or definition of being individual. You think for yourself and you make a decision for yourself, but in case of China, it's purely somebody follows someone, and when someone is criticized for their mistake, that's one of the things they will never forgive. So rule number 3, never criticize. One of the really great examples, when we got our first seed funding, $500,000, after multiple failures that I had myself, I did team up with the Chinese man. I wouldn't reveal his name, that's the confidential, but before they pushed me out of the company, they didn't declare it publicly, but what they did in return, they wrote a certain message on a piece of paper left on the table. And the idea behind that was the sort of, to save my face, they asked me, I can quietly leave the company, sell my shares and get my money, or if I push the borders or boundaries, that would make it public information. So that was one of the great examples for me to understand the importance of the saving the face. The fourth rule that I learned, when you're meeting with Chinese folks, developing the first rapport, interpersonal communication skills, You are not getting anything in response in terms of the emotional response for your message, which is totally fine. You are not criticizing anybody. The fourth rule is do not expect to meet a decision maker from the day one, which means if you're interested in your mission or objective is to get the decision maker, chances are very high you're going to meet a middle class or mid-size senior level or junior level representative of the company who will communicate to his seniors about you. And this is very normal practice, especially in huge corporations. So in China, it's all about patience and time. You don't expect sort of Japanese efficiency, but if you do show the qualities that they like, the ones that I mentioned earlier, will continue as we move forward. Chances are very high it will get you to certain success. The fifth rule, in that's one of the things that probably crosses the line for majority of the folks from the West, but in China or Asia, it's completely normal. When business life is purely mixed with the personal. Imagine the situation: someone calls you at 9 o'clock on Saturday and say, "Let's go for the beer," and that's not your friend, but someone who might be interested in investing in you, but it doesn't mean they will. But chances are very high you will have to agree. And this had a certain cases that. So in China, business is mixed with personal. And you have to figure out for yourself if you're going to adapt yourself, your nature, the way you talk to people and deal with people and accept this, or you're going to ignore it, and chances are very high people going to be refusing to deal with you, or be it the investment wise, be it the partnership wise, anything related. So that's rule number 5. Rule number 6, don't expect to send email from the overseas and get the response if you want to get something out of China, be it their investment, be it the support. Your personal presence will settle a lot more deals, or you will be able to achieve a lot more by being there yourself offline versus sending sort of messages or emails online. So it's never recommended unless you have a huge reputation on a global market. And last but not least is the probably this is the worst case. Expect to get copied. Any in any form or shape are pretty much replicated in China, and that what bothers people. That's the place where be it the individual or corporate entities, they do have a massive capital, and they could potentially pay you any amount of money to learn your technology and scale it domestically and push you out. And this is something that you have to figure out for yourself just to make a choice. If you want to go to China, if you want to scale it big time, you either need the Chinese partner whom you could trust, and chances are very high you'll have to spend a lot of time to get someone like that. Or you do show the technology, you build certain demo for the product, what we call the functioning MVP, and do showcase how it's going to work. And you will probably get the good piece of good chunk of the good bucks, but chances are very high. A lot of cases support that you could get copied and killed. These are the 7 rules that I learned from myself. And quick overall idea about Chinese digital infrastructure. One of our colleagues spoke about Neo and Ethereum. I want to give a bigger perspective. Think of the Great Wall of China that supported China from the external enemies. And this Great Wall of China is digitalized, where they built, first they copied for the past 15 years all the global unicorns that we know, be it Google or Facebook or Amazon. And from copycatting all those global brands for the past 15 years, for the next 10 years or so, they have been innovating a really fantastic ecosystem. Probably among the participants, some of you guys know the WeChat, which built the ecosystem. The WeChat is combining probably between 20 to 50 apps under one app, where people are simply used to this app. You wake up with the app, you call the cab, you buy the ticket, you run your company, you talk to your friends. So all this is happening in one app, and this is kind of very unique proposition that China brought on the table. This app, within 4 years and a half, as far as I remember, it has almost 1 billion users within China itself. And I think that's one of the great examples of ecosystem, moving from the system to building the ecosystem. That's how I would phrase it. And some of you guys might have heard about Alibaba. So to give you the analogy of what is Alibaba and what its differences from Amazon, Amazon built its empire, and all the infrastructure that they have, they built it from the scratch. What Alibaba did to save time is they found partners on the certain terms and conditions where they outsource majority of their logistics. And Alibaba delivers probably 12 million packages a day within China itself, versus Amazon delivers only 3 million packages a day. And to give you the scale how Chinese users or what we call the netizens are, I think, more skilled and more inclined to use mobile payments versus the Americans or the Europeans. And if among the participants you're not only the blockchain but also the AI enthusiast, or probably you are profession developing data, a data-related startup to scale it and to get the funding, I would definitely encourage to go and try China. But if you're concerned about the IP, I would doubt that laws would help you to protect your IP. I would doubt that case unless you have enough budget or required guanxi sort of connections. But that's definitely a good place to go, where the country has built its unique infrastructure and it's going to be applying for the One Belt, One Road. They will definitely try to export their infrastructure, let the world to use it by any means, and compete with the global corporations that we already know, be it Facebook, Amazon, and Google, and they have the butt top of system called Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent. These are, I think, the important elements that the users could or participants in the fireside chat could be interested in. And if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions.
Okay, Amir, so probably you finished.
I did improvise because I had low battery on the computer.
Your parts. I don't know if Stefan would like to add something. I know that he had like a surgery, but it was, unpredicted, some issues. But if you want to add some, interesting info regarding the China, and is it hard to work with Chinese clients, and about your experience, in launching own products and to establish company there. So just I will be pleased to hear also your insights.
Sure. Thank you, Ellen, for giving me the opportunity. Let me first give you a little bit of introduction about myself. So my name is Aaron. I'm CEO of Starling, which is a blockchain consultancy based in Shanghai. First time I came to China was about 10 years ago. Been in Shanghai for more than 4 years now, and in the blockchain space since 2016. In 2017, I was head of China for Shivom, a decentralized application dedicated to the field of healthcare. It's a project that raised for its ICO about $30 million, mostly out of China. Then this year, I acted as a chief marketing officer of Penta, which is a public blockchain project, which also raised about $30 million, mostly from China, Chinese investors. The reason why I want to bring this forward is to highlight that well, China is a very important. It's the biggest market in the blockchain space, and by market I don't only mean private investment-wise. I also mean in terms of the government investing in the space. So to touch on what Amir just described and the startup investment scene in China, I would like to focus a little more on the blockchain startup space in China, and especially how Chinese or foreign projects alike can raise funds, and give a little bit of an overview of where is the China blockchain market going, the industry going. I think it's important to keep in mind that China is at a very specific point in time in its history. You may have heard recently that China has overcome the US in terms of the investment poured into startups, especially through venture capital, which is the first time for this in the history of venture capitalism. And that says something about how important it is for China, Chinese government, Chinese companies to stay at the forefront of technological innovation. And when it comes to blockchain, you also highlight the necessity for China to be ahead of the competition for this particular technology. Now, China is facing some kind of paradox regarding blockchain technology, because on one hand there is the tremendous opportunity for the Chinese government and its people to be at the forefront of this technology, but on the other hand, blockchain and distributed ledger technology stands for values such as censorship resistance and immutability and impenetrability, which probably don't go so well with a government which is authoritative by any measure. So there is a kind of paradox which has been lingering in China since blockchain became popular there, I would say in 2013. And it leads us to a situation these days where, as you probably know, been the case for 1 year now, ICOs are banned in China, exchanges are banned in China. But on the other hand, even after 1 year of this ban being implemented, China still blockchain industry is so resilient that it's the single largest investor in crypto and blockchain projects. So how is that possible? So first, it's very important to keep in mind that Chinese culture is one of the best culture in the world in terms of accommodating paradoxes. You can have this kind of situation where officially it is forbidden to do something, or the government takes a stand against cryptocurrencies and ICO. But on the other hand, you will have a lot of private initiative going in the sense of promoting blockchain technology and ICO projects.
Just want to ask you, are you going to launch probably another blockchain startups? How is the project?
Oh, excuse me, could you repeat your question, please?
Yeah, the connection is good. Are you going to launch with other blockchain projects? And how is going to project?
There is a little bit of an echo in your voice. You just asked me if I was about to launch a project.
Yeah. If you can see, there like to launch other blockchain startups soonest.
Oh, yes. So I'm actually working on another blockchain project, which is going to be quite different from the previous project I worked on, especially in terms of the token economics usage. Because one of the main reasons why I think, and I think other people in the space agree on that, why the market has been bubble as burst, is because there are many uncertainties, and not just in terms of the readiness of the technology, but also in terms of the economic models of all those utility tokens. And I'm not just talking about compliance with regulation. I'm also talking about the actual value that those tokens will have, even when the service that they support will be in place. So a lot of uncertainties. And when it comes to a blockchain project in China, as I just mentioned to you, there is a great difference in China between blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies. I know it sounds a little bit counterintuitive, because especially when it comes to public blockchain, it's impossible to run a public digital infrastructure that don't have economic incentive in the form of tokens or cryptocurrencies to maintain this system. But Chinese government makes a clear distinction of this. And to give you an example, in May earlier this year, the local government of Hangzhou, which is the city where Alibaba has its headquarters, created a blockchain fund of $1.5 billion. It's an initiative supported by the government for blockchain technology, blockchain project, blockchain initiative. Now, at the same time, or maybe a few weeks later, the local government of Beijing released a decree forbidding token sale related events in China. So on one hand, you have the government funding blockchain projects. On the other hand, you have the same government or another entity preventing public events promoting those blockchain projects. So there is this clear distinction made between blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies. Now, how does it work if you are running a project or if you are looking for investors in China? Well, it's very simple. Everyone knows that blockchain projects, for the time being, ICO and token sale. So you have a lot of events, blockchain-related events going on, and people presenting their projects. Now, before they go on stage, those projects have to sign a document through which they ensure the organizers that they will not mention the word cryptocurrency, they will not mention the word Bitcoin, they will not mention the word token sale. They will just talk about the technology and the project. Everyone in the audience knows what's going on, and basically that this is for token sale purposes.
Sorry for interrupting. High time to finish our webinar because we just have 1 hour. Thanks, Amir, for joining us. Thanks, Seven, also for some interesting insights. We want just to say many thanks for our partners who are helping us organize this event and to promote it for digitalogy and crypto. Just from my end, I'm really pleased to talk with you guys. Probably Alex wants to say also. Bye for other guys.
Thank you.
For our guests. Hopefully, yes, we covered the most interesting questions, but for the other questions that we've got, so definitely will provide answers after the webinar by our blockchain engineers. And thanks for joining us. See you. Bye.
Do it. Thank you. Thanks,
Bye.